there is something about you that I feel like the world needs to know, and OSG is your family. So you might as well just go ahead and let us know who you are, what you're doing, and everything else. But one thing you got to do before you wrap up, you got to tell me about what a mompreneur is. All right, you got to remember to tell me about that.
Okay.
All
So
right.
I'm self mompreneur. So yeah, Dennis, this is an honor, man. Like you said, you came into the Clubhouse space. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with Clubhouse, it's this new virtual community that they say is, the next step after, Instagram, Twitter, and now there's this virtual Clubhouse. And so in that Clubhouse, in that space of Clubhouse, I have formed a club that I call OGMG, HBCU Legacy and Wealth Network, and that's where I met Dennis. In that club, the OGMG stands for Original Multi-Generational. Okay, and HBCU, of course, historically Black colleges and universities. So my concept with that is, for those of you who have attended HBCUs, we have a history of educating. If we can't get education through the traditional route, we're going to make sure we take care of ourselves. And so from that perspective, I wanted to bring about as many people who believe in that concept of education as the next level to building your legacy and your wealth in your family. And I'm not just talking about how many dollars you have in your account. Your legacy is your children. Your legacy is what you stand for. Your legacy is your belief system, who you've helped, and all that. And so Dennis was in there, and when he was talking about education, I really appreciated that because, and I say you don't have to have attended an HBCU. I actually graduated from a PWI, but the concept is we need a place where we can come together and we can collaborate, right? Where we can take what we learned in the classroom and now make it do what it do in the real world. And so OSG is an example of that. We take these concepts and we bring it together and we strengthen ourselves, and we are able to hopefully come and stand beside our community, the people of color in our community, and help them where the gaps are. I happen to be an attorney by trade. My name is Donna Brown. And one of the things I've been doing is really helping people, there's a lot of young people, but there's some older people, believe in themselves, have the courage to dream of a better life. Maybe you didn't get a chance for a formal education, and that's okay, right? But have a chance for a better life, but also, most importantly, have the resources. I say that as an attorney for over 25 years and a businesswoman, I've had a seat at a lot of different tables. I've always served in a capacity as an advocate. And sometimes I'm advocating for the man with the money. Sometimes I've been able to advocate for the people who just didn't have a voice and needed a voice, but always as an advocate, always navigating through different systems. And our education is one such system that we all need to help our kids learn how to navigate through.
What do we need to do to empower our teachers, our school leaders, and our children to be able to accept what's happening right now by way of remote learning and having very limited access to a school building? And how do we make the best of it? I know you got something going on in LA that I think you may have found an answer to that.
If we have the answer, then we'll be selling it to everyone because we'll make a fortune. we are still, we are like everyone else. We are working to resolve this because there are so many issues that you have to deal with, and there's so many people who are involved in these decisions. So one of the things, first of all, I want to say hello to everyone, all of you powerful queens and kings out there. I just have to say the work that you're doing in school is phenomenal. I have sat in every chair. I have been a counselor, a dean, a teacher, administrator in middle school and high school. I've been a local district superintendent and had 110 schools that I worked with. I created my own unit in LAUSD called the Student Empowerment Unit. I've been an assistant principal. So everything that you all have been, I've sat there. So I know what you're going through, and I know. But one of the things I want to say, just stay true to who you are. Stay true to what you want to do. Stay true to that idea of being of service. because the things that you're doing now for these young people will pay off. You may not see it now, but later on, somebody's going to walk up to you and say, I remember. Thank you for what you did to me. That's the best feeling in the world. I have people now that I'm mentoring and working with, and who have come and said, thank you. And I didn't do it for thank you. I did it because I am here to serve. I'm a servant. I'm here to do God's work. I look at this education as being the work that God has sent me here to do. So just remember that on those days when you're down, when you work till you can't work anymore, you've got 3 days worth of work to do in one day, and it never ends, never ends. You know, it's like, will this ever stop? No, it doesn't end.
Well,
But
Dr. Manuel, but I'm glad you touched on that, because I wanted to ask you. I mean, as a person who's been in education for as long as you have, I mean, you've seen quite a bit. You've seen instances where education was interrupted, and that life was changed for people in either in LA or across this country, whether it be through earthquakes, whether it be through hurricanes,
yeah.
whether it be through terrorist attacks, those type of things. What have you done over the years to just continue to fight through all of that, to continue to be the trailblazer that you are?
I founded my own school called University Pathways Public Service Academy. We are in our 4th year. Currently, we're yielding a 100% graduation rate, and we say that with just pride. We are the home of the change agents. So it was just an honor for this one kid from Compton to be a founder for people like you, my father, who paved the way to build a pathway and a pipeline of power for people like me to continue to, hold up and uphold what our ancestors and what you guys have done, right? Being 33 years old, I feel like I want to be a model for young people to say, like, yo, you can reach for your dreams, right? And through education, there is liberation. I see Uncle Lays with the liberation shirt and the Sankofa on. So, to know where you're going, you have to remember where you came from. So from people
Absolutely.
like for you, I just applaud you, and I just want to say that your work, the seeds that you have planted, has grown and blossomed into trees that look like me, that can also water plants for young people to grow up and blossom into great flowers.
So, Principal Ra, we need to get together because I don't know if you've heard of Wilder's Preparatory Academy, and any of you need to Google. They're the top scoring school here in Los Angeles for African American young people. It's out of Inglewood. I'm on that board, and I've been on that board for over 10 years. You might want to, I'd love for you to get together with our board and even with the principal there to share best practices.
Let's do it.
Um, yeah, so we'll connect.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I am proud of you. It takes a lot to make those kinds of differences. You make a lot of sacrifices, also, young people. So you're going to give up a lot of things. You give up a lot. And you have to be sure your health. You've got to take care of your health. I uh, I had never been had any real issues until I became a principal, and I had high blood pressure because of all the stress. So you really have got to work on you young administrators stress. You've got to have stress outlets. You've got to eat right. You've got to drink your water. We sacrifice ourselves for everybody else.
Yeah.
But if you're not good, if you're not healthy, if you're not right, then you can't be good or right for anyone else. So the first thing I want you all to do to make a commitment to your own well-being, mental, physical, spiritual.
Here's one thing that you need to know in terms of moving into 2021. Let me holler at you a little taste. Institutionalized gains, okay? Not just gains, but what? Institutionalized gains. That means that we don't just do things to go through the motions. We set them in stone, baby. You understand what I'm saying? We set everything in stone. So whatever you're doing in your, see, now you really got the radio voice coming out. I'm trying to get back to the conversation piece. But anyway, in terms of, I want you to think about this. Institutionalized gains. We are used in education to seeing things come and go so quickly. Matter of fact, most things don't last beyond their grant cycle. right? Or something that's introduced into education, whether it's Common Core, et cetera. And people wait for it to come and go. As a Black community having an opportunity like never before, we must think about how do we institutionalize our gains, that they're not just going through the motions, that somebody can move them. And we'll talk about that more, because that's what we're talking about on this side of the planet. Institutionalized gains, where those realities and that ground that we have covered is now not taken back and removed, but it's a part of the infrastructure. Institutionalized gains is the challenge.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you. I don't want to say thank you for your service, because even though what we do is service, what we do is we do it for the people. We do it for our people. We do it for the love of our people, our children, our families. So I don't even want to say thank you for your service in that respect, because we're just doing what we're supposed to do as a people, and we're doing the work that we should be doing for our families. But I will say thank you. I appreciate it. As I was driving, Brother Wesley, you said something that is a bit of a pet peeve for me. You asked a question about what do we call ourselves, Black or brown or what have you. And so I'd like to kind of posit the thought that historically, when you look back at our experience in this country, over and over and over, we allow other people to define who we are. And so as educators, we know that it's important to name things. We know that in science, it's important to name it. We know geographically, it's important to name it. And there's a reason that we name it. Black and brown doesn't quite fit the bill for me. We are people of African descent. You got to name it you got to know who and what we are in order to be kind of service to the mission, right? And so again, if we continue to allow other people to co-opt our movement, to co-opt our ideas, to co-opt our identity so that we're not clear on who we are, then we'll never be clear. And so for me, I'm a person of African descent. I'm light-skinned, but I'm a person of African descent. I don't define myself as a person of color. That's not my stick, because I'm not going to allow somebody else to define me. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, kind of in response to what you mentioned.
Let me get in just on the brief piece, because you're so absolutely right on that. And that's why I said it would have to be another meeting where we actually have that conversation, because there's some financial situations per the philanthropic community in terms of young men of color. When you start talking about why did Obama create a My Brother's Keeper Young Men of Color initiative, instead of understanding to create just the Black movement. So I was really speaking in lines of the finances and the philanthropic community. Nah, brother, when it comes to Blackness, when I'm dealing with my young brothers, the historical needs that we need to do per that engagement is critical. Last part, let me say this to you. One of the things we're finding across the country is, even though the Fortune 500 companies will give $10 million to the president for diversity and inclusion, they won't let you have a conversation by Brother Khalil during Black History Month. So there are challenges that we're experiencing, not just in corporate, but in education. In academia, we were having a challenge to even use the word color in our Young Men of Color Leadership Conference, right? At the top, they were having a challenge. Did you want to say color? I'm saying we're going to at least use color. I want to say Black. So there's just some strategic challenges that you're going to find in place right now that we have to find a way to navigate those. But I'm with you 100% in terms of the identification.
We'll put some of your leaders together. I'll put some of my leaders together, and we'll do a shared space. And then I'd love to also get in some conversations about going back to school. What is that going to look like? What do you all need to start doing to prepare for this? What do you all need to do to start getting your mindset? Because I met with a group of people yesterday. It's not going to be the same. You're not going to go back into that building and it's going to be the same. You still got to think about social distancing. You still have to think about masks. How do you get the kids to keep the masks on? You still have to think about keeping everybody safe, but mainly keeping yourself safe. Because who's going to take care of those kids who are sick and parents won't come pick them up? Who's gonna be here in our school district? They're getting rid of the school police. Who's gonna be there when somebody comes on campus with guns and things like that? So there's some real conversations that I would love to do in small groups or what have you, because we're struggling with the same talks, and how are we all going to go back to school safe so that you all are safe, because you're the front line, and they're going to expect you all to be doing all kinds of things to make sure things work, but you may not have all of what you need to make it happen.